That's not what we wanted.
We gather today because that's what people do. Since the beginning of time, it has been part of the human condition that we stop and acknowledge the death of someone, to give honor to a life lived and begin to figure out what that loss means to the ones left behind. to provide a sacred space for the pain and grief, to establish significance and unique aspects of a life lived, to catch our breath and begin the first shaky steps towards reconstructing a new reality. When a man who is such a large presence in so many lives is gone so suddenly and before anyone was ready, the need for safe gathering of those who loved him is even more necessary. It is in the tears and the stories that each of you can find comfort and healing. So we gather today because that's what people do. Welcome. My name is Jackie Brock Brausch, and I am honored and privileged to be the funeral celebrant for our time together today as we celebrate the life and mourn the death of Jeff Eischen. We're here for his family, his wife Betsy, his sons Blake and Justin, his father Dana and stepmother Nancy, his siblings Michelle, Melanie, Mark, and Mary Ellen, his 6 nephews and 4 nieces, his mother-in-law Donna, stepmother-in-law Kay, his sisters and brother-in-laws, extended family, and those friends he made family. You have lost the center of your world, the anchor to your lives, a mentor, a guide, the man who led you on the paths of discovery, the focus of so many strong emotions, and the very energy and rock of life. We are here to surrender you with a circle of support and caring, to say to each of you that you have willing companions on your journey of grief. The path will be long and winding, and every person pledges to be there when the travel gets hard. On behalf of the family, thank you for being here for the most important moment. Every person in this room has a hole in their lives where your friend, your associate, your buddy used to be. Most are still in shock, still trying to catch your breath and find your balance in a world that has been turned upside down. Your presence says to the family that you loved and admired this man, that you are grieving for this special guy, and that you are willing to be an honor guard for his memories in all that you do. You are here for the family, to share in their pain, to be ears for their stories and shoulders for their tears. In our moments together, we will hear the stories of Jeff's life, see the snapshots of his favorite times, and leave this place knowing again that you were lucky to be a part of his life, that the great times and challenging times were all part of the journey, and that he left a handprint on your heart. Jeffrey Dana Eischen was born in Syracuse, New York, and raised in Camillus, New York. He graduated from Bishop Loudon High School in 1986 and went on to pursue a degree in marketing and psychology at Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey. Jeff always thought it was very important to see and live in different places. He took tremendous pride in the fact that he lived in Vail, Colorado for a year, taking on odd jobs to make ends meet, including being a lift operator at a ski resort, even though he would tease that he was a ski instructor. He started in South California, where he took a job at American Airlines in corporate sales, and as he moved up the ranks, he worked his way to Chicago. But the greatest journey began on December 31st, 1989, when Jeff met Betsy on a family vacation in Barbados. At first, they were just great friends, which then turned into dating for 8 years, and the cake topper happened on Labor Day weekend of 1998. Jeff and Betsy spent a glorious week down the shore with friends before marrying on September 3rd, 1998 in Tarrytown, New York. As Betsy described to me, an epic honeymoon followed in Bora Bora and Maui. Before the birth of Blake, a job opportunity came Jeff's way in New York City, and he and Betsy made the ultimate decision to move from Chicago and settle their roots in Betsy's hometown of Wyckoff. Does that happen a lot? Jeff commuted for many years before opening his own business, Airport Marketing Income, AMI, first out of their home and eventually into a small office right here in town. With Jeff's keen business sense, it was a company that grew with the times and evolved into so much more. Jeff was a lover of sports. He played lacrosse in college, and it was a passion that continued with him into adulthood. Not only did he play in an adult league, but he also coached his boys and co-founded a local travel lacrosse team to help maintain a sense of community appropriately named the Tribe. He also enjoyed being part of a lunchtime basketball league for over 20 years at the Ridgewood YMCA. Jeff would continue his passion for travel with Betsy, Blake, and Justin, going to such places as Puerto Rico and Costa Rica, Mexico, Aruba, the Bahamas, and Maine, just to name a few. He also took fishing trips with buddies to such places like Isla Morada with college friends, the Jersey Shore, and Canada. But Jeff's favorite place to be was being out in the woods in Ithaca, New York, at his dad Dana's house. It was Dana that instilled the love of the outdoors in Jeff, and it was extremely important to both of them to spend time together. They made many great memories together in Jeff's happy place, and he passed that passion down to Blake and Justin. In fact, nothing made Jeff more proud than when both of his boys decided to attend college in Ithaca. They were able to feel the real sense of family that Jeff instilled in them and were able to share time with their family members, especially Big Papa. He was a lover of music, especially classic rock, and an avid reader. He loved learning about things that he wanted to understand better. He also loved to grill, hosting friends and family at the house, hanging on the deck, making ribs and barbecue chicken, and listening to some good music was one of his favorite pastimes. A person's story is a reflection of that life and everyone that he touched. Each smile, hug, party time, or serious moment is a reflection of a life well lived. At this time, I'd like to invite Blake and Justin to come forward and share with you some of their special moments and memories of their dad.
Thank you all for being here. The love and support you have showed my family has been incredible. The seemingly thousands of bagels and sandwiches and trays of pasta are so greatly appreciated. And like my dad, I'm not afraid to go for a second or even third plate, so it won't go to waste. As a kid, I remember waiting by the door every single day for my dad to come home. And the second he would walk through the door, I would make him chase me and entertain me until I had tired myself out. And I did not tire easily. And as a kid, I wouldn't really think much of it. But he would wake up at the crack of dawn, work all day, and then without skipping a beat, be on the ground with me and my brother as we would pull and prod at him and run around like maniacs. And that is just the kind of dad he was. It did not matter if he was tired or if he was having a bad day. He was always there for me and my brother. Whether it was coaching all of our teams or even starting his own summer team with the goal of keeping me and my friends together, he always went the extra mile for us. He was always there for the people in his life. And I believe so many people turned to him in their times of need because he was not someone that was just going to tell you what you wanted to hear. He would tell you what you needed to hear, no matter how frustrating it would be to hear. Deep down, you always knew he was right. And in the moments where I have found myself hit with an overwhelming wave of sadness, I take a deep breath and think. I remember the man my father was and all the joy he brought to me and everyone around him, and how it would be a disservice for my dad's memory to be associated with sadness. So when you find yourself feeling sad about my father, I ask that you remember the teammate, the friend, the coach, the brother, the son, the uncle, the husband, and the father that he was, and smile. Thank you.
Good job, buddy. Good.
Love you, buddy. Good job.
You think?
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a great teacher and role model. I would always watch him and try to walk, talk, and act like him. He taught me so many things. Some funny, some useful, and some Jeff Hardo-y. How to cook. Like Jackie just said, my dad loved gathering family and friends on the deck and experimenting with new recipes at home with Justin and I loved getting to help, and after a very long time recently, even learned to love my dad's overconfident or semi-passive-aggressive notes when I was doing something in the kitchen, and how he would have done something just a little something differently. Those close to my dad know that he was always right. How to set a hook. How to visualize success before a big game or a big presentation. Car rides over to Polis Field when I was tiny consisted of blasting Alive by Pearl Jam as loud as it could go, closing my eyes and imagining everything moving in slow motion, going as perfectly as it possibly could, with every small detail. This is a good one for Nana. How to hawk a loogie. Strange and gross one, but before my dad and everybody on the Yankees quit Copenhagen, little me wanted to spit all the time, but would end up with it on my shoes all too often. The big fella could launch one close to 15 yards. If you've spent time in my backyard at all, he could go from the edge of the driveway and reach the hill. Impressive stuff. He told me it was okay to do, but never in front of a lady. Listen more than you speak. If you're going to do something, go all the way and do it right. Live a life of balance and never get too high or too low. Take care of your people. Go to concerts. If you stumbled back in from the bar, don't have one slice, have 5. If you give your word, keep it. You are more likely to look back on this time of your life and wish that you worked harder than the other way around. There's value in difficult things and undertaking them. If you can make them look easy, you should. My dad gave the best advice and pushed Justin and I to be the best versions of ourselves as consistently as possible, just like he always did for himself. He was often kind of philosophical, but in a funny way that was true to him. I'll miss everything from our fishing trips to his maybe a little overconfident comments that I mentioned before. My dad loved his work and had really cool and big plans for the next few years, and eventually had grand plans to eventually transition into opening a fishing charter and coaching high school lacrosse. We had big plans for the future, the 3 of us and my mom. Yeah. Fly fishing for tarpon, skiing all around the world, and building a cabin up in Ithaca someday. I'm grateful for my dad for always being there and going above and beyond. He's the perfect blend of a teacher and a best friend. I've been listening to all of our favorite songs this week, putting together that playlist that you guys heard walking in. And there's a line in Willin' by Little Feat, which is one of his favorite songs, that reads, "I've been kicked by the wind, robbed by the sleet, had my head stoved in, but I'm still on my feet, and I'm still willin'." This week's been very sad and very scary for my mom, Justin, and me. It comes in waves of not feeling real and then feeling very, very real quickly. I'm overwhelmed when I think of the rest of my life without my dad, but know that taking it day by day and stacking 24s on top of each other, we'll all be okay. Thank you all for the calls, texts, visits, and hugs. I'm grateful and love you all. Thank you. Love you, Big Dog. Love you. Good.
Thank you, Justin and Blake. Jeff's longtime friend, Danny Tepper, will now share some of his thoughts of his dear friend.
Nice job. Okay, hi, I'm Danny Tepper. Jeff was my best friend for, I think, more than 30 years. But turns out he was cheating on me the whole time with all of you because everyone was his best friend and considered him a best friend. And so he was a serial best friender, and I never knew it behind my back this whole time. But I'm not going to share a bunch of stories of things that we've done. I'm just going to stick to some basic top line themes. Some you may know, but I think it's worth mentioning. With friendship, right? Okay. There were, like I say, everyone was his best friend, and he was everyone's best friend. But above all else, he held a handful of friends that were his best friend, okay? If that makes sense. Two of them you just heard from, Blake and Justin, okay? Sons, yes, but best friends, always, and in a really unique way. Okay, and then the reason why I'm here as a surrogate for all of our teammates from college and beyond is because the other person on this short list couldn't come up and speak because he's so heartbroken. A quick word about John Root. It was always Jeff and John. They were such good friends and such best friends that they became one person, Jeff and John. It was always Jeff and John, and equally down the middle, you put them together, that was Jeff and John. And I know it's tough, so hard for John and for the whole crew, but on his behalf, I want to say that he's the one that really has a lot more to say, but couldn't, okay? Obviously, Mark and Dad and the family are on that short list, but the GOAT is Betsy, okay? I mean, talk about best friends, and so far I think that's a theme in everyone that's spoken, but above everything else, all of the glamour of their relationship, I knew from the first time that they were together that they were best friends. Quick little thing I've never told anyone, but at their wedding, and I was in their wedding party, and we were recalling it, but I offered to make a music video for the reception, right? It was kind of like this, but maybe more MTV and with a little bit more zhoosh and a little more stuff going on. But and I did it gladly. But because back then I knew Betsy was above everything else, Jeff's best friend. On the title card, nobody noticed this, and I never told anyone. But on the title card, people are watching it walking by. I transposed the letters on the title card. So it says Jeff and Betsy, but I transposed the S and the T, so it was Jeff and Bestie, right? But she never noticed, nobody, or she did, nobody ever said anything to me, but that's how far back it goes, me knowing who was and is the GOAT in the best friend department, but we all have this in common, that he was our best friend. Okay, and then if you stick with me for one more second, have a little bit more of an abstract thing, another way that brings us all together, and especially why are we in New Jersey, and who are all of you, and how are we connected? And if you stick with me, and I'll bring it around to a point. It comes from chaos theory, the point that I want to make, and it's something called the butterfly effect. And you've heard about it, and you've heard it, but maybe in abstract ways. It's simple that, you know, one small little event can play a part in a chain reaction that goes and makes big events happen. The classic example is a flap of a butterfly's wing, that little puff, can, through a chain of events, go and turn either into a huge storm or divert a storm. But it goes, you know, the examples are endless. But here's where this comes in to play here today, is I played some small part in why we're all in New Jersey, not here in this room, but why we're all in New Jersey and how we're connected. And it goes like this. When I'm I think 2 years ahead of Jeff in college, but when we were, you know, an up and coming, really strong lacrosse school, our coach, Coach Gill, who is here, was running around like crazy that he was able to attract these two great recruits from Bishop Ludden, and that they were coming down. We didn't really know much about it, but Coach Gill was apoplectic. These guys are going to change the program. Of course, one of them was Jeff, and the other one was Teddy. And so it was during the off season they came down for a recruiting visit to our campus. As you know, Coach Gill pulls in with these guys, and they plop out of this car. You know, Jeff, I think, was 16 years old. Looked, as a matter of fact, you know, shockingly like a great combination of you guys, but more so like Blake at that age. I don't think he shaved or anything, but, you know, Jeff with his sweater and his, you know, his button-down shirt. Well, anyway, Coach Gill is around here somewhere, but he threatened me there and then. Oh, I was in charge of Jeff and Ted. I was to keep an eye on them and make sure that they had a great experience, and then to try to persuade them to go to Fairleigh Dickinson. Okay, and so I can remember Coach Gill saying, Danny Teppa, you know, these guys, they're good Catholic kids, and I don't want you messing around up here. You take care of these kids. And he laid down the law and said, Danny Teppa, two things. I don't want them drinking. No underage drinking. I don't want that happening. And for God's sakes, I promised his parents, don't take them off campus. And so 11 minutes later, while we were in my car driving to New York City to go to the peculiar pub on Bleecker Street, I really got to know Jeff, and it was then that the relationship really started to bond. And as my mom would say, I noticed right away that he was raised right, is what my mom would say, and that's what you could say about Jeff. But how does that relate to all of you? Well, that was needless to say, because of that weekend, and when coming back from New York, I'm looking at Huey, I'm looking at Pat, I'm looking at Larry Lynch, I'm looking at Brian O'Keefe, I'm looking at everybody else. You know, we all put our best effort in because we knew our best chance to win was to get this big giant lacrosse prodigy to come to our school. So the rest of the weekend, the FDU boys, a lot of them were here. Reuter was part of his class, Bobby Sable, everyone. Our job was to really get these guys engaged so that they would come back, particularly Jeff, and they did. So the butterfly flap, the butterfly effect was that I had a hand in bringing Jeff to New Jersey. The chain reaction and to Fairleigh Dickinson, the chain reaction that came from that is what I think connects all of us. Yeah. And from that, Jeff and the crew from where I grew up in Maplewood, Jeff became independent of me, became friends with all of my friends and then their friends. And then all these people in New Jersey who I don't even know, but while, you know, he's from Syracuse, but I think it was all back to that, it comes back to that one small puff of air of taking him under my wing. And now here we are under his wing. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. We're now going to hear from another good friend of Jeff's, Mark Johnson.
Jeffrey Dana Eischen, proud husband, father, son, son-in-law, brother, uncle, friend, record-setting college athlete, coach, mentor, hunter, angler, fresh and saltwater, skier, CEO, grill master, connoisseur of desserts and pies, fishing trip coordinator, and the list can go on and on. Jeff managed to pack 10 lifetimes into 55 years. For my family and I, it's 30 years of having Uncle Jeff in our lives. Births and birthdays, graduations, holidays, family vacations, kids' games, barbecues, and countless other perfect memories that I'm sure everyone here can add to. But those aren't the memories that come first to mind when I think of Jeff. It's those less than perfect moments that make me smile and laugh and remember him. Like the first time we went away fishing and Jeff dropped his brand new rod and reel overboard. He stripped down and was in the water before the rod hit the bottom. I remember thinking at the time, it looks like you've done that before, but I've just kept that to myself. Or the time Vinny and I went on a fishing trip to upstate New York with Jeff's dad, Dana. We woke up early the first morning to see that Dana's boat, which we'd put on the lift outside, was gone. Upon inspection, it appeared that somebody forgot to apply the lock to the lift. So the lift dropped, the boat floated away in the middle of the night. We found it washed up on shore about a mile away on the other side of the lake, no worse for wear. No one ever claimed responsibility for that, but I have my suspicions. Or every time Vinny and I would pick Jeff up to go on one of our fishing trips, it never failed that we would get halfway down the street before we'd get the inevitable, I need to go back, I forgot something. Vinny and I knew it was going to happen. We never said anything. He'd just look at me in the back seat and we'd laugh. It was enough to know that he knew that we knew it happened again. So he'd get back in the car, tail between his legs, and we'd drive in silence for 5 minutes before the inevitable first joke would fly. We'd all laugh, especially Jeff, and we'd laugh from then until we got home days later. Sometimes we even caught fish. But that was never the point for Jeff. It was never about the outcome. It was always about the journey, the experience, and the time spent together creating memories. He was always planning the next trip or barbecue or night out, any reason to get together with his family and friends and make new memories. It's hard for me to feel anything but sadness, but I think Jeff left us all a gift, a renewed awareness that our time here is not infinite and nothing's guaranteed. The gift of remembering to treat every day with purpose, joy, and happiness, and the gift of prioritizing time with those you love and making memories that will last long after we're gone. To Betty, the gift of knowing how to correctly light a cigar, and if not, knowing how to extinguish the flames if someone happens to light their shirt on fire. But seriously, your gift is all around you, everyone in this room, the love of family and friends you created together. I hope you feel the love and hugs from all of us. And to Justin and Blake, the greatest gift a father can give, the blueprints for a life well lived. Rest in peace.
Rob Landell is another longtime friend of Jeff's. We're going to hear some words from him now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I met Jeff 16, 18 years ago. His son, Blake, and my son, Ben, quickly became best friends. And before long, the entire Haitian family became part of
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tim. You know, so, and somehow this mixture of Paul Bunyan and James Dean got dropped in a Wyckoff, and I always thanked Betsy for it. Now I find that Tepper and the Peculiar Pub finally angled him that way too. But whatever it did, however he got here, thank God, and we're all better for it. So he was this, to me, he was this mountain man hunter who had this futuristic grill that he called a Traeger. And it was like a smoker, and he showed me, and this was many years ago, before anybody had a Traeger. And he would say things to me like, "Rob, everybody's got to bring a piece of meat to the fire." And I didn't know what it meant, but I thought it sounded cool, and it scared the shit out of me all at once. And I have problems like rounding up moths and letting them out of my house, and I wasn't going to kill something to bring to their house. But he always had something tasty for me to eat. I tell you what, my friend could cook. You'll hear recurring themes, but he was a master on the grill. And then you would hear other things about him that he wouldn't say. It was by accident, and it came from other people. And one day somebody they sent me a picture of it was a portrait of Jeff. It was like I think it's a painting. I don't know, it was a picture of painting, and it was almost like a gold leaf frame, something significant and substantial. And I guess it was a picture of him because he was his Hall of Fame picture someone was on the FDU Madison campus, and they sent me the picture. And I learned not from him, but through other people, that he was part of an all-century team for his conference and an All-American player. And he just didn't boast about things like that. I took the picture, and I kept it as my screensaver for a while, just to bust on him. And he would, I didn't realize he was that kind of player. I knew that he was from Syracuse. Everyone plays lacrosse up there, but he just kind of would just brush it off. And to me, it's hard through words to describe how somebody makes you feel or what the essence of somebody is. But for me, that was kind of Jeff in a nutshell. He had this quiet confidence, and he didn't have to boast, and he knew exactly who he was at all times. He was comfortable with himself, and he knew what was important. He had this just an innate sense of self, and it impressed me so much. You wanted to be more like him. I wanted to get to that spot mentally, to be more like him. So I did what I thought was the reasonable thing. I bought 4 lacrosse sticks, and I eventually got myself a Traeger grill, and I learned that doesn't do it. You either have that quality or you don't. It's not that easy. But he had it, and he had it in spades. And I think probably over the years, a lot of things that he did impress me, and I looked up to him for a lot of different reasons. But I watched him coach. I was lucky to coach with him, even though I didn't know what he was doing. But I'd watch him coach, and he just got it. I guess it's still that calm, quiet confidence. He always got it. We've heard it a couple of times, but he was a teacher and a mentor. And I'm not talking about the lacrosse part. He certainly knew a lot about lacrosse, but he was just so good with the kids, whether they were teenagers or younger kids. And there was no yelling. It was just, he understood that he was out there teaching life lessons, through sports and on the field. And having him help raise our kids on fields was a blessing. And anybody he coached, I know there's a lot of people here he coached, or if he coached your children, you should feel very fortunate. It was a blessing. I had a front row seat for many years. He had tremendous impact on my children, and I feel blessed and lucky that I knew him in that way. And he always had a calmness about him. When you were with him, you just felt calm, and you felt everything was going to be okay. He was just so even-keeled, except pickleball. No one's perfect. we got to strive for the perfection, but no one is perfect. The pickleball noise. At 18 years, I saw him probably not calm and a little crazy once, and it was about the pickleball noise from the courts down the hill. And if we're going to be completely honest, and this is a place where we should be completely honest, initially he blamed it on Betsy, and I got the phone call, Rob, we got to do something about the pickleball courts. Betsy's not happy. Oh, like, Jeff, we can't have that. Betsy can't be happy. I got it. We got to do something about the pickleball. The town adopted an ordinance limiting the hours of pickleball in town, which I affectionately call the icing ordinance. I'm sure there's plenty of people here that play pickleball. If you can't get on the courts, it's not Betsy's fault. Don't blame her. But all the things I admire. But first and foremost, he was a family man. His family came first. I mean, we're lucky they shared him, and he touched a lot of our children. But his family came first, and nothing was close. And he told me on many occasions when we were out how much Betsy meant to him and how happy he was that he had a good marriage. And trust me, when guys go out drinking, we don't order cheese boards and profess our loves to each other about our wives. And I hope I'm not breaking the guy code, but that usually doesn't happen. But he talked to me about it, and certainly his boys were his pride and joy. And anyone who's here today or knows them knows why. What a treat and blessing it was for him to raise you guys and be with you guys and spend all the time with you. And these last 5 years to see you play in college, I mean, I can't imagine. I know how proud he was, and I know how much he enjoyed it. And if you don't know Blake and Justin, and I'm sure almost everyone here does, take some time to talk to them or get to know them, because if you want to see the qualities that I'm doing my best to describe that Jeff had, it's certainly in them, and those qualities live on. There's no doubt about it. The impact he had will continue. And, he loved his dad, man. I tell you, I've met Dana maybe 5 times, and I feel like I know him as well as almost anyone. He would talk about his dad's professional accomplishments. He would talk about his father's property up in New York and his time with his father and brother. And like I said, he was a family man through and through, and it came through always. So I think so many of us work hard to try to figure out what's truly important, or we try to convince ourselves of what's truly important. And every now and then we get a tragedy like this, and I think it causes us to recalibrate and take measure and to think about things and look at things in a different perspective, and we try to get to that place where we all really want to be. And I think that one of the best things I can say about Jeff is I don't think Jeff really had to recalibrate much. I mean, Jeff always seemed to be in the right spot, at least when he was with me. I think he showed us how to live by example, by how he lived. And he did it without lecturing, and he did it without boasting, and he did it without yelling. He just kind of lived the way you should live, and hopefully people took notice. And when you're with him, he brought you a little closer to that place, and it was an awesome place to be. And if you really want to know how I feel about Jeff and Betsy, but if you really want to know what Jeff meant to me, I don't think I could say anything different. In all honesty, if something happened to me, he's the one I'd want to take care of my kids and raise my kids. And he'd be my first choice. And I wish he was here and I could tell him that. But that's what I thought of him, and that's what I think of him. And the only solace and little comfort I get now is I like to believe that he's with my son Ben now, and Ben got his coach back, and I'm just gonna take comfort in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. we're now going to hear from Jeff's brother, Mark.
Afternoon, everybody. I think before I get started, I do have to address what's probably on everyone's mind. Yes, I am Jeff's younger brother. I saw some of the heads going. It's probably due to the, I'm sure everyone's seen my brother's, the glamour shot that accompanied his obituary. Pretty sure he got taken at Barbizon several years ago. Make it his Facebook picture, which we all know how important that was to Jeff, his social media presence. Anyway, let's got that out of the way. Stinky boy. Big stinkus. Brother stinkus. Bad stinkus. Stinky stink, stinky skunk. Stinky winky, stinky dinky. Stink, Nick, stink, stink. My stinkus. That's far from a complete list, but that's how all my voicemails that I received from my brother would begin. Every one of them, no matter what the subject matter was. And mine for him, it might seem strange to some people that we had the same nickname for each other. It never did, but it might now. But we did, and footnote on that, it was one thing I loved. I loved getting voicemails from my brother. I loved when he'd call. And one thing I have to mention, I was speaking with Reuter, one thing that I know now that was not unique to me is if my brother would call and I was in a meeting, I'd send him straight to voicemail, and the meeting would go on, and I would glance down a few minutes later, and I would smile because he was still leaving me a message that was like just berating me like, how dare you send your brother to voicemail? What could be more important? And so I would laugh knowing what he was doing. That nickname between us really started, I don't remember exactly when, but in Chicago, really, it started to take hold. Chicago, as was mentioned, really turned into a second home for our family for many years. Missy and Mike set up shop there for a while, and Jeff and Betsy followed, and then Melanie, and I moved there. I didn't know what else I was going to do. Everybody else was moving there, so. And then Babes came for, if I remember right, it was during college, came for a summer to take care of Sweet Banksy. Yeah, so that's when the name really took hold, and I think we would try and pit it on each other. I was sure it would stick with him, and he would try and put it back on me. I'll share with you one particular time that came to mind. It was the mid-'90s, I think, if the time was right when we were there, and remember we were all going to watch Michigan State play Syracuse in the NCAA tournament, and we were all meeting at a bar, and the whole group was going, but it was before cell phones. To date myself, it was mid-'90s, really before anybody had cell phones. Actually, Jeff probably had a cell phone, but none of the rest of us did yet, so he had limited people to talk to. But so Jeff enjoyed the finer things. So I was on my way to the bar, and again, we had just said, I'll meet you there after work. And so I was making my way through Lincoln Park, and I see on the side of the road, there's Jeff, and he's got, at the time he had his brand new car was like a dark green Jeep Grand Explorer. Beautiful car. It had the Eddie Bauer trim, which at the time was, probably still, I don't know. But so I recognized the car, and I saw my brother, and he was parked next to this place. I think it was a car detailing place, and he loved the car, so he was cleaning it out before it went in to be detailed. And so he was bent into the driver's side, car door open. He was bent way in there, and he was cleaning some stuff out of it. And so I seized the opportunity, and I kind of tiptoed across the road, and I snuck up behind him as close as I could. And at the last second, I grabbed the back of his collar and his belt loop, and I pushed him further into the car, screaming, "You are the stinky dinky! You are the stinky dinky!" And I've never heard my brother scream like that. I don't think I've ever heard anyone scream like that. But it only egged me on more. So I'm laughing and I'm holding on as long as I can. And you can imagine my surprise when I found out that it was not my brother. Or that man's surprise, for that matter. I spent a few minutes trying to explain to him and apologizing. There was really no, at that point he was less scared and just more relieved that it wasn't going to go on and get any worse for him. But I did try to explain to him, and then it started occurring to me how great it was going to be to share this story with my brother. And so I took off, and before I knew it, I was running to the bar because I couldn't wait to tell him, and because the police might have been on their way. So I remember I got to the bar, and I looked around, and I spotted Jeff had a table, because he always had the rest of the family all set up, so we had a great table next to a big TV. And I'm making my way through the crowd, and he sees me, and he's like, sure enough, he's like, "Big stinky stink," and I'm like, shut up. I gotta tell you. And we laughed so hard that day. And that's just an example that it's always been like that with my brother and I. He's the first one I call. If I got a good story, if I have something that I think is going to make him laugh, I couldn't wait to call him. And it wasn't just that. It was if I just needed somebody to listen to me, he was always there to listen. He was there to help. He was there to give completely unsolicited advice. And I still have some of his voicemails on my phone. Someday I will want to listen to those, and it'll bring me joy. I heard some of Jeff's friends had said to me, I would love to hear Jeff's voice one more time. I don't want to hear Jeff's voice one more time. I want to hear Jeff's voice every other day when he calls me and gives me a hard time for not picking up. I can still hear his voice, and someday that will bring me happiness, but for now, I've spent the last several days going, it's not fair. It's not fair, as many of you have. But I can't think like that. I am so lucky. I am so grateful. I'm so beyond grateful that I got to call him my brother. Nothing made me more proud than to introduce him as my brother. Let's face it, he was that guy, man. He was that guy. And I thought I would close by thinking of other names that might fit Jeff. No, this is a little more respectful. I'm thinking of other names that, some other words that he was loyal, he was strong, he was caring, he was giving. But what kept coming back is that he was solid. My brother was solid. I knew I could depend on him. You knew you could depend on him. And we are all, well, I can speak for myself. Maybe because I have more room for improvement than some, but I'm a better man for him. And I strive to be a better man because of him. I love you, Stink. Take care of Mom. Peace.
to join them at Aldo's Restaurant, which is right here in town. The address is 640 Wyckoff Avenue, and that's going to be starting at 4 o'clock. If you do plan to go to Aldo's for the time of fellowship, we ask you to save your thoughts and time spent with the family